Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulullah wa ba'd. All thanks and praise due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for we seek His help and His forgiveness, and we seek refuge in Allah from the evil within ourselves and the consequence of our evil deeds. Whoever Allah guides can never be led astray, and whoever Allah leads astray can never find guidance. And I bear witness to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam as his last and final messenger. So last week we talked about being compassionate, mannerisms towards other individuals. And unfortunately I'm back for another week, so you guys got to put up with me again. And this time inshallah we'll talk about the Prophet's relations and his interactions with his family. More specifically, we had someone 2 weeks ago when we had that talk asking about the Prophet's interactions with children and how he would behave around children. We know, of course, that he was an admirable human being, but specific examples and what lessons can be learned from those examples. First and foremost, the ideas and the lessons that we talk about, a lot of them will have a lot of similarity in them. When we talk about the general idea is having good manners, being compassionate, but it's important that we hear this all the time. And the most simple advice is typically the one that we need the most. We talked about this 2 weeks ago as well. The reminder of having to pray, the reminder of doing this, the reminder of being a good person is the reminder that we typically need the most, because things that are normal to us, things that we have familiarized ourselves with, are the things that fly out over our head the most. These are the things that we pay the least heed to say. So we talked about compassion, we talked about good mannerisms, and we talked about putting yourself in the perspective of others, understanding the perspective of others. And just to give a quick recap, we gave the example specifically of the companion that came to the Prophet ﷺ asking about, and just to summarize and paraphrase the hadith, asking in regards to making adultery allowed for him, which of course was a major sin in Islam. May Allah protect us from it. So the companion then asked for it to be permissible for him, and instead of bashing him, instead of completely just dismissing his ridiculous request, what Rasulullah ﷺ did was he instead put it in a perspective. Would you like it if it was X, Y, and Z, female relative of yours? He listed a few and asked him, would you like it if it was you? Basically trying to talk to him in a way that was relatable to him, therefore getting the lesson across, or the intent across better. And at the end of it, he ended off by making dua for that companion, by placing his hand on him, making dua for him that he does not fall victim to his desires, and the companion was then not afflicted by those desires of his. So putting yourself in the perspective or in the shoes of others. Now this idea applies to family as well. And there's a specific reason why we're talking about family, and inshallah we'll talk about that towards the end or perhaps in between. If you look at the example of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, his kindness carried over into his family as well. Very obvious, very simple, doesn't take a genius to understand it, right? His lessons or his compassion carried over to his family as well. Let's look at one of the relations that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam had, and that was with his wives. Right? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said in numerous places, in numerous hadith, and most importantly in his last sermon as well. Right? The last sermon being of high importance, of high value, where he talked about important lessons. And those lessons were quite general, and those lessons were quite, not to say redundant, but those lessons were very, like I said, things that we hear all the time. No Arab is better than a non-Arab. Treat your wives, treat your women properly. But these lessons are important because this shows us this is the most important things in our religion, the most important things in our deen. If someone's praying, they don't have sincerity in their heart when praying, what good is that prayer? When someone doesn't follow the footsteps of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what good is that prayer? Yes, that person's praying, but is that prayer being accepted? Because we know there's certain things that will nullify our prayer as well, which is another topic for another time. So it's important that our Islam, and I mentioned this today as well, perhaps I mentioned it 2 weeks ago as well, but it's important that we revolve Islam, it's important that we do not revolve Islam around our life, rather we revolve our life around Islam. What does that mean? You prioritize Islam, not your desires. Perhaps I mentioned this last week, right? Or 2 weeks ago. So it's important that you prioritize Islam and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger has said. Rasulullah sallallahu said, the best among you are those who behave best towards their wives. I am the best among you towards his wives. The best among you is the one who is kindest to his wife, and the worst among you is the one who treats his wife badly. There's another reason why I'm mentioning this specific thing, but this goes to show you the virtue of simply treating someone properly. There's numerous hadith that talk about the best person is this, the best person is that, the best of you are those that learn and teach Quran, right? خيركم من تعلم القرآن وعلمه. All these hadith. Now, just to clarify and to preface, that it does not mean that just because this hadith mentions this category as the best of people that the other hadith is incorrect. No, there can be more than one best of people. There can be numerous categories. Same way how we talked about today in Jum'ah, the 7 ones that are granted share on Yawm al-Qiyamah. The 7 individuals, you can be in multiple categories. Just because you're in one category doesn't mean you not get reward for being in other categories. So try to aspire and try to fit into as many categories as you can. The reason why I mentioned this hadith specifically, and we're talking about families, inshallah, and we'll move on to how his reaction was when it came to the shabab in the masjid, right? We give this funny example, and I think I also mentioned this 2 weeks ago, about in our culture, they mentioned that if you want to see someone's mannerisms, you look at how they are at the dinner table. It's a funny little saying, but when that comes out, you see how people truly act, whether they're fighting over the food and this and that, or whether they're patient. But the idea also applies same here in a non-funny way, that someone behind closed doors is who they actually are. You will see, and unfortunately you will hear so many examples of people. How many think about it? How many people do you know personally, or you, that individual yourself, be able to protect us from it? That in front of the masjid, they're this, they're that, laughing, doing this, talking to this person, righteous person, but behind closed doors, they're throwing hands with their family. What is this? They're arguing with their family, they're doing, they're disrespectful to their family, they do not provide for their family. Your family has an obligation over you, especially for you younger guys. It's important that you treat your parents right. You take burdens off of your father when it comes to bills, whether it's hard work, whether it's physical work. Your mom, you make sure it's easy for her. If she needs something physical, top shelf, needs something from outside, it's not outside, you go and do it. You're younger, healthy. See, a lot of you guys are jacked, I'm trying to be like you guys, but you guys are healthy, young, you know what I'm saying? So you have to take that burden off of your parents. But you'll see people that are behind closed doors, in front of people, they're one certain way, behind closed doors, they are a completely different way. The way they are behind closed doors is a true reflection of who they are. Not the way they speak on the member, not the way they speak on the table, not the way they speak to people, not the way they're smiling. The way they are behind closed doors is a true reflection of who they are. So analysis of yourself. The way you act in front of people, the way you talk to other people, the way you're laughing and smiling in the masjid, is this a true reflection of who you are behind closed doors? And I don't mean this in the sense of Allah help everyone, trials and tribulations, but I mean more so your demeanor and your mannerisms. Are they the same with the people that you see every day? Or is it just the people that are outside that you pray with? Assalamu alaikum, laughing, go rainbows and sunshine, and when you go home, then it's arguments and perhaps even physical. Think about it. Is there a difference, or the same way that you are smiling with others that are not even part of your family? Or is that the same smiles that you go home to? Think about it. Analysis of yourself. And if that, the similarity is there and you act the same way, oh, my bad, may Allah keep it like that, and may Allah increase you guys and increase the relationship with the family. But if not, then that's a very big issue. Because the hadith mentions about husbands, treating their wives properly, but the idea applies to a family in general. You should treat your family properly. These are the people that interact with you on a daily. When it comes to, for the younger people, your parents, Even, we talked about reverse last week, although I applaud them. We had a brother came today, he became Muslim and his parents knew about it, right? The parents were fine with it. But I told him specifically, and I mentioned this, and I prefaced everything that I said with this specific statement. That doesn't matter if your parents are Muslim, non-Muslim, black, white, abusive, doesn't matter. You have to fulfill your obligation that your parents have upon you, as long as it does not contradict your deen. Plain and simple. We hear this all the time. One time we had a sheikh come to our mission in Brooklyn, and someone said to him, my wife, her mother, is abusive verbally, I don't remember if it was verbally or physically, but let's say verbally as well, right? And it's just a very toxic relation. It's not a relation that's helpful for her, beneficial for her, so we decided that we separate ourselves from them. No communication, no nothing, or communication once in a blue moon. The sheikh asked him, do you talk to them at all, whatever it is? He said, no, we don't talk to them. The sheikh told him, and this is not because the sheikh said I'm mentioning this, because it's backed up by hadith and by the sunnah, that does not matter whether your parents are physically abusive, does not matter if your parents are verbally abusive, does not matter if your parents are Muslim, non-Muslim. And I'm going to explain why I'm talking about the abusive stuff. You have to fulfill your obligation when it comes to your parents, because at the end of the day, they are still your parents. And Rasulullah told us this, and even in the Quran it says, right? فَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُفٍّ. The Quran literally uses the word uff. The ayah says, وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا إِمَّا يَبْلُغَنَّ عِندَكَ الْكِبَرَ أَحَدُهُمَا أَوْ كِلَاهُمَا فَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُفٍّ. That if one or both of them has to reach old age, do not even say uff to them. Does not say be obedient to them, but if you have your emotions, khalas, no problem. No, even in your obedience to them, you cannot let that disrespect slide. Why do I mention this? Right? Let's put a scenario forth of someone being in an abusive household. What happens? They have to separate themselves. There's nothing wrong with separating yourselves. Oftentimes you will need to separate yourselves if that's the case. Right? But what happens is you call every week, mama, baba, whoever it is everything okay with you? They're going to say, oh, you're a horrible son, daughter, whatever it is, X, Y, and Z, you're this or that. Listen to it. Khalas, no problem. You're doing it for the sake of Allah, not for my pleasure, for their pleasure, nothing. For the sake of Allah. Listen to it. You need anything from me? No, I don't need anything? Okay, Allah, take care, inshallah, talk to you next week. Close the phone. Respectfully. Right? Does not say if they're abusive, you don't talk to them, no, exceptions to this. No. Your parents are your parents, and you have to fulfill that obligation that they have upon you. Now, all the way around, when it comes to parents and their kids, you have to treat all of them equally. Oftentimes you'll see an example where a parent is more supportive to one kid over another. It is human inclination to perhaps like one person more than another. That's not an issue, right? It's out of your control. Allah's not going to hold you accountable for it. But what you are held accountable for is the love that you give your child, the responsibilities that you give your child, the fairness of your child. Perhaps you may spoil one kid and the other kid has absolutely nothing. And this is a very big issue. We'll talk about hadith that mention this specific thing. But to go back, the way an individual treats his family behind closed doors is a reflection of who he actually is. Now, looking at the relation specifically between spouses, right? Talking about traditional Islamic roles, right? Unfortunately, those things are very washed out. It's a very gray area when it comes to modern day topics. But the man's role ultimately is to help and take care of his family. As men, we should be emotional and physical support for our wives and for our families. And on the other hand, women are more emotional, they're more in touch with their emotions, they play a different role. But typically speaking, when it comes to Islam, a man has, and I want to use this word very loosely, has a sense of authority over the woman in the sense where he provides for her, and sometimes he has to call the shots. Yes or no? That's just the way Islam is. And if you want a successful marriage, follow the ways of Islam. So that authority that the man has over a woman will often lead men, because of whatever, testosterone, egos, whatever it is, I don't care. It will eventually lead them to using and abusing their power, right? I told you not to do this, why are you doing this? At the end of the day, she is still a human. She still has rights upon you as well. So do not let that authority go onto your head to the point where you then start becoming abusive, you start becoming verbally abusive, physically abusive, whatever it is. And that person, if you want to see how someone truly is, look how they are in positions of authority as well. Whether it's authority over their family. A father has authority over his kids, yes or no, to call the shots. I don't want this happening in my house, I don't want this. And he pays the bills, and let's be honest, it's true. It's right upon, if someone's feeding you, they're clothing you. If they tell you, put this chair over here instead of over here, you can't throw a temper tantrum. On top of it being your father or whatever it is. So the idea applies that when someone has that position of authority over someone, and yet they're still proper in terms of their behavior, their mannerisms, and they are just in their decisions, and they are soft-spoken to that person, despite them being, authoritative in a sense, or they're more of an authoritative figure in the household, that person, despite all these factors, still being just and compassionate, is a true reflection of who they are. And we talked about this today as well, subhanAllah. Everything's going hand in hand. We mentioned there's a hadith that says, and this is just in general speaking, and this is an idea that I wanted to just present to you guys as well, that authority is something everyone wants. Power is something everyone wants. Power and titles are something that people fight for, verbally and physically as well. I've seen it happen in front of my own eyes. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to a companion, Abdurrehman, the companions of Abdurrehman, Abdurrehman, do not fight for, do not want this authority, do not fight for this authority. Do not ask for authority. He said, for if it is by your request, and you are granted that authority, you will be held accountable. For every small little mistake that you have made, it is going to fall on you. Because you asked for that authority. Some people are qualified. Some people will be individuals that are supposed to be in positions of authority and power, but you'll see they'll step back. Because people who have been doing this know that it's not an easy thing to do. The pressure that is on your head when it comes to being an authority of people or multiple people, organizations, whatever it is, it's not an easy thing. It keeps people up at night. And people that are in that position know that you want to get out of that position ASAP. But everyone sees the fame, the dollars, the whatever it is, it's the respect that people get, and that's something that people, their mouths water for. Back to the idea. He said, if it is by your request that you receive that authority, you will be held accountable for it. But if you do not, request it, but you get that authority, Allah will help you through it. So if someone who's not fighting and wanting that power, because let's be honest, someone who's fighting for that authority wants it because of the notoriety that comes with it. So they said, if you do not fight for it, if you don't request that authority, and you get that authority, then what happens? Allah will be with you and Allah will help you with it. Back to the point of the family relation. When one has authority over someone, when one can call the shots, when one is the decision maker, when someone is the breadwinner of the household, when someone's, and this doesn't man or woman doesn't matter, right? When someone has that authority, when someone has that upper hand on someone, when someone can do something and not be questioned about it, for example, the US president, no one's going to tell him what to do. That's the boss man. Simple as that. So when you have that element of check and balance is taken away and you can do whatever it is you want and you still treat your wives, your family properly, that is a true reflection of how someone is. Because if someone's outside, with their families, laughing, enjoying, rolling out the red carpet for his wife to walk on, taking off his jacket and putting it for her, but behind closed doors, those things are completely away and there's verbal and physical abuse. But to be honest, we know what the true reflection of that person is. So it's important that you take care of your family and that you have this relation with your family. Number one. Number two, and this is something, unfortunately, that our cultures have mixed, and our cultures have made this a very gray area. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, right? He being the Prophet of Allah, is correcting individuals, it's not an issue. But we, as family members, we have to correct each other and look out for each other. We know the hadith that no one is able to obtain full faith until they love for themselves what they love for their brothers. For sisters, the word brothers used by means sisters as well, right? But the idea stands that if you see your family member doing something wrong, does not matter how old they are, does not matter how distant they are to you, but there's a hikmah that comes with it, of course, which we'll talk about as well. Does not matter your family members, you have to correct them. Oftentimes, our cultures will say, hey, you are younger than me, I don't care what you have to say. Whatever you say, in terms of advice, is in one ear, out the other. That idea does not stand. Islam does not function based off of age or who has the more gray beard or whose back is more crippled. No. It functions based off of who has more knowledge. Right? What are the qualifications of someone that leads to Allah? There's no imam. Someone who knows the most Quran, it doesn't say someone who has the most connected grid. But it says, whoever knows the most Quran. After that, who knows the most about Islam? That's what it says. So Islam functions based off of knowledge, not by status, by age, by any of this. So when you see a family member of yours who's persistently doing something wrong, do not let these factors of age and culture get in the way of advising someone. Now, that being said, you have to do so with a hikmah. You have to do so with a wisdom. Let's say you go to wherever you guys are from, you go back home, and your uncle's cousins, aunts, cousins, insurance agent's uncle is with you, right? And you've never seen this person in your life, ever. And this person's doing something wrong. Brother, please correct this, please fix this, you're going to go to Jahannam. No. You've never seen this person in your life. This person does not know your name. This person does not know who you are. This person may not even know you're related to them. This person does not know what qualifications you have. And you're going to speak very bluntly, your advice is going to go out the window. We talked about this last week, 2 weeks as well. You have to approach it with a hikmah. If someone is older than you, for example, a father, for you guys that are children, right? You have your parents. Take your parents aside. Mama, I love you guys. I want the best for you guys, right? And I just see that you guys are doing something wrong. And I heard the Shaykh say this, and this was the hadith. And what you're doing is incorrect. However, you didn't know, so Allah's not going to hold you accountable for it. This is how you do it. An individual is going to be more receptive to it when you throw in compliments as well. Same way when you look at the hadith of the companion that came and asked that ridiculous question to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what do? He made dua for him at the end. He softened his heart to make his advice more receptible. That's even the word, right? To make his advice received properly, he gave him a compliment and he was relatable to him. So when you approach a family member, do not let culture get in the way, or do not let age get in the way of you helping your family. Just because it's a father-son relation or a child and a parent relation, does not mean that the child cannot correct the parents. Oftentimes, the parents will have elements of culture that go against the religion that will be incorrect. So your job, as someone who knows about the deen, as a youngster who knows about the deen, you have to present it to your parents in a way that's going to make them receptive. You have to be kind in the way you speak. You have to be soft-spoken in the way you speak. And you have to be indirect in the way you speak. We talked about this as well. If you go up to your parents and tell them, oh, you're wrong, I'm your child, you're going to listen to me still. The Shaykh Abdurrehman said that, I can correct you. You're going to come after me. I don't want that, right? But you're going to go to Jihad, if you don't do this, you're wrong. You can't go to your parents and say that. Mom, I love you, I want the best for you. Follow it up with sweet words. Be indirect perhaps. Well, I saw someone doing this, and I came to my mind that that's wrong. Maybe that thing that the person was doing was something your parents do as well. So you mention it in a way that's not direct to them. But you have to make sure that you look out for your parents and your family relatives and correcting them. This is the relation that Rasulullah had in the example of who? Who was someone that he was giving non-stop da'wah to? A family member. Huh? Abu Lahab, right? To the point where there's a surah about him. And granted that he was not successful in his mission of getting Abu Lahab to accept Islam, he was still persistent. Did not let those harsh words. And there's examples where Rasulullah climbed up in a square in Mecca. And if I'm not mistaken, it was Mecca, forgive me if I'm wrong. But he went up and told the people, if I told you that there is an enemy coming, right? I warned you, would you believe me? They said, yes, you believe me. Abu Lahab, and he said that Allah's punishment is near. Abu Lahab cursed him. So what are you doing? Get out of here. All these things, you look at the example of Abu Lahab completely rejecting his nephew's, message, to the point where it wasn't even just rejecting, it was disrespectful. But yet Rasulullah did not let it get in the way, that relation of he's older than me, or he's this, his family member, I'll let him rock, I'll give him under the table the pass agenda because I'm a prophet. No. He did his best to advise him and correct him, regardless of whatever he received back from him. Different concept, idea still stands. You do your best in correcting your family in a way that's wise, so that way they're receptive to it. But that brings me to my next point, that as Muslims we have to differentiate between culture and Islam. There's nothing wrong with having your culture or practicing your culture. Those are your roots. You practice them and you keep them, right? Or else we'll all become bland and we have no personalities. You have to keep your religion, you have to keep your culture, but you have to make that distinction between culture and religion. If you look at the culture at the time of Rasulullah, they would bury their daughters alive if it was a daughter, right? He didn't keep that in Islam. That was separated. That's wrong. That tradition ended. Granted that it's a very harsh example of a part of culture that's impermissible and contradicts the deen. The idea still stands that you have to make that distinction. Now, the reason why I mentioned this is it goes back to our previous point, that when oftentimes you will speak to someone that is part of your family, and you will say how this part of your culture is incorrect and it goes against the deen, it'll often be met with some sort of backlash. Yes or no? They've been practicing this act their entire life. They've been doing this thing their entire life, and now out of nowhere, some kid that they saw grow off, perhaps even their own child, is now coming and telling them that the way of life is wrong. It's a hard thing to overcome, but if done properly, it's a very feasible thing. But it's important that we clarify these things. If you see something going on that's wrong, if you see something, and you are not answering it or you're not fixing it, you will be held accountable for it as well. We know that Rasulullah says in a hadith that when you see something wrong, you do one of three things, right? And he gave us a list. First and foremost, if you are able to stop it physically, you stop it physically. Perhaps if you see your boy smoking, don't slap it out of his hand. I'm dead serious too, you slap it out of his hand. If he gets mad at you, let it be. You stop it physically, right? See your boy with a girl, slap your hands off, right? So you stop it physically if you can, right? But some situations will not warrant or not allow you to stop something physically. What happens after that? You stop it verbally. You try to stop that action verbally. Hey, what you're doing is wrong. Do not do this, right? This is incorrect, impermissible. Perhaps you might have to be harsh with your words because it's a boy of yours, and you can speak to him like that. This is where the element of hikmah comes in, of the wisdom. Hey, I have this relation with this person, and let me use this relation to capitalize on the fact that I can speak to them a bit harshly to get my message across. So first and foremost, physically stop it if you can. If you can't physically stop it, then you verbally stop it. And if you can't verbally stop it, what's the last thing?
Hate it with your heart.
Who said that?
Hate it with your heart.
Amazing. Want to come and lecture for me?
Sure.
Right? So it's not hate it with your heart, but disagree with that action in your heart. And this is the lowest level of Iman. This is the lowest level of Iman. And oftentimes we look at people. We see these things going on day and night that are impermissible, that are going against our religion, but yet we just think, oh, it's no problem, it's okay. It's wrong. You have to do so with hikmah. This is why the hadith gives us 3 examples, because sometimes the first action might not be feasible. Verbally might not be feasible. At least, the least you can do is disagree with it in your heart. To get off topic a little bit, right? It's important that I also mention this, that there's a lot of topics and there's a lot of things that are present in our society, especially as you young guys that go to college, right? And all these colorful things are there, to say it very directly. Oftentimes our religion, or oftentimes our communities and our people that we hang out with, oh, you know what, in Islam it's haram, but it's okay, Allah judges them. No. And people will say, you know what, they're trying to make up an excuse, but in Islam, the story of Prophet was about adultery, not about this act or this. You cannot skew the deen to support your scholarships to get into that college. That's not how it works. You don't skew and turn the deen to fit your point of view. The way Islam is the way Islam is. There's no arguing about it. And you as a Muslim have to abide by it because it'll be your reason, the key to success. So the reason why I mention this is because I've seen Muslims, unfortunately, allowing acts or even verbally stating, perhaps even physically, aligning with these acts and saying, you know what, it's not a big deal, Islam was 1400 years ago, it's 2023, live your life, So you do not skew the deen. You do not, just because someone said something, you stand firm on your deen. Doesn't matter who it is, Joe Biden can be in front of you, don't matter. You stay firm by your deen, and I guarantee it, staying firm by your deen will be your reason for success. So all of this, why I mention this, is because you will often see this example of people not being able to advise their family members because of other factors. Culture doesn't allow younger people to speak up to elders, this and that. Do so with hikmah, and follow the example of Rasulullah in being compassionate with his words, but make sure that not only are you kind to your family, make sure that you are the same way you are with people outside. The way you are outside with them is the same way you are with your family. And also make sure that you advise your family. These are your loved ones. These are your relatives. You share a blood relation. You want to see them with you in Jannah. Yes or no? I would hope so. You want to see your parents with you in Jannah. If no, then we'll talk after the lecture, right? But you want to see your loved ones with you in Jannah. If you can make the effort to do so, why not? Because not only will it guide them, but hadith also mentions that Rasulullah says that whoever guides someone to the right path will be rewarded for it without detracting from the reward of the one that he guided. If you do something and you guide someone to a correct thing and they've been doing something wrong, not only will that person be rewarded for it, but you will be rewarded for it as well. And your reward will not take away from their reward and vice versa. We all talked about this 2 weeks ago, so we're so focused on passive income, passive hasanat, there you go. Take this as well. You're sitting in bed, you're laying in bed, and you're accumulating good deeds because of something that you did, and you guided someone and you did so wisely. So make sure that you do speak up. Now, I don't want to come back next week and people saying, oh, is everyone going around takfeering people in the masjid? No. Please don't go call everyone a kafir. No. Do so with hikmah, do so wisely. Follow the example of Rasulullah. If you have any questions, we talked about it 2 weeks ago. I'm sure it's online on Instagram somewhere. Take a listen to it. But make sure that you do not let that element of family get in the way of advising people. Now, this was the much requested topic. And this is a very important topic as well. Rasulullah's compassion when it came to the shabab and they came to the masjid. Right? Now, I don't know if this was a saying of a companion or whatever. I believe it was Ali, if I'm not mistaken. Allah forgive me if I'm wrong. But he said that if you don't hear the noise of the shabab, the children in the back of the masjid, be fearful for generations to come. Right? Because that means that the kids are not coming to the masjid and be scared that Islam might not carry on to the generations that come. And this is another example of how to gauge how someone actually is. Right? I've seen, unfortunately, people act disgustingly towards their children. embarrassing them in public. And to retract a little bit, right? When it comes to the element of families and spouses, for all of you guys get married, if you guys are not married already, brother, get your righteous spouses. But I've seen, unfortunately, husbands embarrassing their children in front of people. Husbands embarrassing their wives in front of people. Wives are embarrassing husbands the other way around, or parents yelling at children. You're embarrassing them in public by yelling at them. Take them to the side. Do so in a way that's wise. Not only are you ruining your reputation, you're embarrassing them. You know how kids are. Kids are not easy. Bullying is a real thing, right? So they kept my hair when he gets back to school. But the idea applies that you have to also be considerate of putting yourself in someone's shoe. You would have liked to have someone put you on the spot in front of people. Have that element of thinking for others as well. When it comes to children, these are creatures that can't really do much themselves, right? Can't really use the bathroom sometimes, they can't really speak up for themselves. So people's actions and behavior towards children also will speak volumes about that person as well. Oftentimes you'll see someone demeaning other people, demeaning individuals simply because they're younger, perhaps even being children, right? If you look at the example of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it's mentioned in hadith, Anas ibn Malik, may Allah be pleased with him, the servant of the Prophet, had another recollection where he said, I never saw anyone who was more compassionate towards children than Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. His son Ibrahim was in care for a wet nurse on the hills of Medina. He would go and he would pick him up and he would enter the house, pick up his son and kiss him and come back. Right? This is how compassionate he was. He would greet children as well. Oftentimes, think about it. How many times do you walk into a masjid or you walk into a gathering and you say salam to everyone and you see that little 4-year-old and you walk past him like it's not even there? Say salam to him as well. What difference does it make? You get reward for it as well. And at the same time, wallahi, you think about it, how many times has someone done something to you when you were little and it still leaves a sour taste in your mouth? Right? You don't want to be the cause of someone having that feeling. Rasulullah ﷺ was compassionate and he was even kind to those people that were not even fully mentally developed yet. Kids, he would go say salam to them, he would greet them. Rasulullah ﷺ, there's a hadith that mentions that he would, this is right over here, that he would cut salah short if he heard the crying of a children, if he starts the salah and he intended to prolong the salah, meaning making the salah long, and he heard the cry of a child in the back, he would shorten the salah out of compassion for the mother. It's not easy, you can't break your front salah. Sunnah salahs are different, but you cannot break your front salah when a child is crying. As a mother, the motherly instinct comes in, why is my child crying? Perhaps he may need something. If you don't see your child in front of you, you're crying from the back, God forbid, maybe he's hurt. Something may have happened. It's normal, it's completely normal. Whenever Rasulullah ﷺ heard this, he was intending to prolong salah, meaning he wanted to make salah long. The moment he heard a child's cry, he would shorten the salah. Doesn't mean he would, talawi, what did it say, faradi talawi, he wouldn't go that fast, but he would speed up, read the shorter, surahs, and he would end the salah so that way that mother can attend to the child out of compassion for the mother. He valued children, and wallahi, I swear by Allah, you giving this attention to kids, you giving this, this attention to kids, you giving this generosity to kids will not only play factor in terms of it being your hasanat, but at the same time that kid may grow up and what you did for him will be a cause of him being closer to the deen. I remember a personal example of mine when I was, just to throw in a little story in there as well. I was a little kid and we used to have a Quran class and the Shaykh would take us to the parks, right? And he even mentioned that I hear all these stories about sheikhs hitting kids when it comes to Quran class, doing this when it comes to Quran class. My sheikh never laid a hand on us, right? And wallahi, because of that idea, whenever I teach someone, whenever I speak to someone, my sheikh's mannerisms come into my mind. I should follow the same way I'm talking about you right now. When I was in first grade, the idea still stands with me. When I was there, a younger, a guy in his teen, he was maybe in his 20s. Whenever we would go outside, we would do a little Quran class, he would come, he would take us, he would go to the store, he would get us something, just as an incentive for doing good in class. Every time we do that, and this is something that I advise the parents as well, if you have a younger one, try out the method of incentivization. Wallahi, it works. We'll talk about that afterwards. But that stuck with me. Now I have that memory every time I go to that masjid. I have a special place for that masjid in my heart. Do you not think that individual is being rewarded for it? For creating those memories that made me attached to the masjid. We talked about it today, that one of those who are given shade on Yawm al-Qiyamah is a youth who grows up in the worship of Allah and a man whose heart is attached to the masjid. You know this hadith. A man whose heart is attached to the masjid, a youth who grows up in the worship of Allah. Because of that individual, of course, everything's from Allah, according to Allah. Something that individual did made me more inclined to come to the masjid. And he, Allah, I have not seen this dude in years, right? I don't know where he is, if he's even around, but I grant him a long, healthy, happy life. This guy does not know all the reward that he's getting. And this small action of the same individual, because that, be it a kid, it's still a human being, that person that you're overlooking, that small action of overlooking can be the big difference maker, whether you get all that reward or you're missing out on all that reward. It's also in the hadith that Rasulullah and this is, a bit of a funny example, but the idea still stands as well. Narrated by Aisha, the Prophet took a child in his lap, and then the child urinated on him. So he asked for water and poured it over the place of urine. Someone kid did that to us, we're throwing hands with that kid, right? You're flinging that kid off, we're throwing hands with him, and screwing up with him and everything, right? Think about it. How many times will we lose our temper over something like this? This kid is not in control of what he can do. Follow the example of Rasulullah. When people would just simply verbally ask him something that was inappropriate or bad, they would lose their mind simply by something verbal. Fortunately, the kid urinated on him. It's a physical thing, right? They could have went to the parents and all mad. I'm the Prophet of Allah. I'm supposed to be righteous, clean, all these things. No, simply just clean it up and I will love this day. This example can be followed by you guys in the sense that whenever something happens, even if it's a kid, right? Some individual asked, I don't know if they're here or not, but they asked about giving examples of how Rasulullah treated youngsters and how he treated children, right? But the idea can also be applied to older people as well. We failed one thing and we lose our temper, that's it. We become the red bird from Angry Bird, right? We just lose our cool. That's it. Like take time about one thing and just call us, you lose your cool. We have to be calm, we have to be considerate in the way we speak, we have to be considerate in our actions, we have to understand that sometimes things are out of people's control. People can't control certain things, right? Whether it's something verbal, whether it's something physical. Perhaps, and we talked about this last time, someone may be going through something, right? How do you know if someone's having a bad day? It's not like you guys have like a little menu pop up on your head and say, oh, this person is having a bad day. No. That's something that's between you and Allah. That's something that's been kept to yourselves. I do not know this, you do not know this. But you have to be considerate of whenever someone comes to you, even if it's a child. And that action that you do, and Rasulullah, it's said about another hadith over here, that people, the shabab, the kids would literally call on him when he was praying, right? And when the kid was on their back, and he was going into sujood in a position where the child would fall over, he would take the child off, put them down, and when he would get up, he would pick them back up. This is the Prophet of Allah. This is the most righteous man to walk the earth. This is, we treat the president, no one get near him, armed, secret security, no one get like in a 10-foot radius. Right? If they had a kid secret security, they probably pumped them off, The idea says that this is the Prophet of Allah. Kids are calling on him, he does not have an issue. Think about it. If a kid crosses in front of you, I've seen so many little people. A kid runs in front of them, arm right out. Like the toll booth thing. The arm thing, the kid's falling over. First of all, if a kid passes you something, that's not an issue. It's a kid, it doesn't know anything. If it's an adult, that's different. But this lack of compassion between older people and older you guys as well. Right? You guys, well, I bet if you guys are not old, you guys are not on wheelchairs, they're not wheelchairs, but you guys are still a lot older than these 6-7-year-old kids. So this act of being harsh with them, kids making a little bit of noise, even as you guys are perhaps working massage, they lose your cool. Why is this kid making noise? Why is this kid doing this? Kid leaves a bag of chips on the floor. You throw the bag of chips in his face next time you see him. No. Be compassionate. Do not have that gap between you as older folks, as you as older folks, and those that are younger than you. For that gap will grow and grow and grow, and Islam will not be something that's practiced in generations to come, be it as harsh as it sounds. If you look at the example, everything that I mentioned, the element of compassion leads to many other things. And this is the beauty behind Islam as well. Simple things, all of them are intertwined. All of them are somehow, some way connected. And oftentimes you're like, this kid's dragging it, it's not even that deep. No, it is really that deep. Because you follow one thing, and you do one thing that leads someone to Islam, something that leads someone to the path of Allah, you get rewarded for it as well. Do not think that if you close that gap, you invite kids to the best, do programs on Prophetic, especially it's pretty active. If they do something, do not think they're going to be rewarded for it. So treat people with compassion. Do not let age get in the way in terms of being a means to not advise others. So to retract and summarize, right? Making sure first and foremost that you are properly compassionate and you are kind to your family members. To your family members, not outsiders. To your family members. The same way that you are outside should be the same way that you are behind closed doors, for this shows how you actually are, and this shows how you will be judged in front of Allah. Right? That persona that you put on of being righteous and compassionate, Allah, I'm such a nice person to my family. Allah knows best. Allah sees behind closed doors as well. So make sure the way you are compassionate and friendly with outsiders, that idea of compassion and friendliness carries into your homes. It will make your homes successful. You will be held accountable for it if not. And also, Rasulullah said that the best of you are those that are the best of the wives. So make sure that you have this element of compassion inside the home, be it man, woman, children, or not. Next point, making sure that you advise others even when it comes to family members. Do not let age and culture get in the way of advising. And when advising, do so with hikmah. Be persistent in making sure that your family does good and stays away from any bad. Do not let the culture and the element of age and whatever in relation get in the way of you bringing someone close to the deen. Third point, making sure that you make the distinction between culture and religion. For a lot of things in our cultures unfortunately contradict the deen. So we have to make sure we prioritize the deen and stay away from what's impermissible, and do not let our cultures get in the way of practicing our deen. And last and finally, making sure that you have that compassion and kindness even to someone that is younger than you. Age does not matter in the sense of being kind towards others. So making sure the element of compassion and kindness carries on to those that are younger than you as well. For if you bring them closer to the deen, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward you for it. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to be compassionate, to be kind to others, to allow our families to be successful, to allow our homes to grow with happiness, to allow our homes to be filled with happiness, for our family members to be happy because of us, for our families to stand fast on the deen. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the way we are united here right now, to unite us in the firdaus. Inshallah, we will be taking any questions if anyone has any comments, concerns, anything. Inshallah, floor is open. Yes. Sure. Correct, beautiful. So the sister asked if someone perhaps has a relative that is not a parent, that is emotionally or physically abusive, how do you go about it when it comes to them despite you trying multiple times and it comes to no success? There's one thing that does not change, and that's Islam. Your rights that someone has upon you, for example, taking care of them, if they're in the army, be it non-Muslim or Muslim, the rights that someone has upon you stays there, regardless of whether or not they're good with you or they're bad with you, right? Because those rights are from Allah. Allah said that this individual has these rights upon you. So those things don't change. Same way how we give the example that if someone is good, perhaps their bad does not change their good, and their good does not change their bad. If someone's very charitable, however, he has a bit of a foul potty mouth, does not change the fact that he's still charitable. That's something else, and that's something else. So the rights that someone has upon you, that's been ordered from Allah, do not change. The way you go about those can be changed. The example of perhaps a sibling that might be abusive emotionally or physically, right? This person, Allah doesn't say you have to look at this person. Allah does not say that you cannot separate yourself physically from that person. Allah does not say you have to WhatsApp chat with them and send them every meme you see every day. No. Allah says this person has this right upon you. Taking care of them, keeping some sort of relation with them, keeping some sort of communication with them. If they're in need of help, you go and help that person. If that person comes to you, you help them. Now these things can be done from a distance. Example, we gave the example of that mother that was abusive to her daughter. You can call this relative of yours, they can curse you out as much as you want. Hey, is everything okay? Do you need anything from me? Oh, you're this, you're that, I want to talk to you, this and that. Okay, you don't need anything from me? Khair, inshallah, take care, I'll speak to you next time. Close it. You don't have to talk to them all the time, you don't have to live with them, you don't have to be ha-ha-he. As long as you're fulfilling the rights that they have upon you, khalas, that's it, you did your part. Now someone may say, what happens if this person is not picking up my phone call? What happens if this person is avoiding me? Just because they're doing something does not mean you stoop down to their level. If you try communicating with them, Perhaps you might live in the same locality. Pass by their crib, pass by their home, see if they're okay. Perhaps ask someone that you know knows them. Hey, is this person okay? Is this X, Y, and Z individual doing okay? This is my brother of mine. You don't have to give them the whole story. Are they doing okay? Perhaps have some sort of information on them, or a relative, or a masajid community member leader. Tell the imam, hey, this person of mine is a family member. We don't have the best relation, but I want to fulfill my part of the deen. So let me know if they ever need anything, right? Perhaps that should will look out for you as well if somebody needs something. So you do your part. After you've done your part, whatever that person does is not on you. At the same time, if you deal with hardships, that person is cursing you out, that person is being just a pain in the rear end, Allah rewards you for it. For you at least fulfilling your part of the deen. We have reward for intention and action as well. Whereas for sin, it's only written down when you do the act itself. But if you intend on helping a family member, even them being bad to you, you're rewarded for it. And if you go out and follow through with it, regardless of whether or not it happens, you're rewarded for it. But you do your part, and you don't have to be super duper, lovey-dovey close to them. Fulfill your part, even if it's the bare minimum, and let Allah handle the rest. Does that make sense? Okay, any other questions? Concerns?
Like a follow-up, like
Yeah.
like a toxic family member or someone like you used to be connected with when you were younger. So now like you're older, they're trying to connect with you. How many times like a week you have to talk to them? Does that include only like your aunts, your cousins,
So there's a whole fiqh thing in regards to like who that relation is kept with, right? You said when someone was younger. So are you talking about a community member or like a family member? Yeah.
we didn't have a relationship.
Correct.
Now that I'm an adult, there's something, but it's hard. It's difficult. So
So I preface this by saying there's two different things, right? There's someone genuinely realizing their mistake, and sometimes there's factors that play into it. Perhaps, Allah, someone becomes, they grow up, they become rich. That family back home, they want the blue passport, So that element is two different things. If that person is in the category that's all different talk about in regards to the fiqh, right, of who you keep that with, who has what rights upon you, same thing applies. Even if that person, that they're talking to you to use you, whatever rights they have on you, those rights still stand. Make sense? Of course, that person is applicable to those rights. But those rights still stand upon you, regardless of even if they're trying to use you. But you as a person, or even as a Muslim, you have to be cautious of making sure no one's taking advantage of you. Because even before that person, perhaps your wealth, maybe you have to attend to your children before you can send that granddad home for orphans that need help, So you have to make sure that you fulfill others' rights or prioritize those things. But someone who's trying to use you, whatever rights they have upon you is different. You don't have to, again, like I said to the sister, you don't have to be super duper close with them. You don't have to call them every day. You don't have to be texting 24/7. You do the bare minimum, even if it requires you talking to them every other month, right? It doesn't have to be every week. Now, on the other hand, when it comes to someone actually realizing and growing as a person, and they have some sort of personal growth, where they became a more mature person, they got more in touch with their deen, they realized perhaps they didn't treat you the best. And I say this from this Islamic perspective, and there's a hadith that mentions this, that if you want the mercy of Allah, you have to be merciful to His creation. So if you want someone to forgive you, it's only fair that you forgive others as well. I would personally, as a piece of advice, when people realize their mistake, there's no need for you to rub that feeling of, hey, you made a mistake into them more. Right? That'll make a person feel bad, and any animosity that was erased before, that animosity will come back. So it's important that you don't make someone feel a mistake. Hey, if, for example, Mawan corrects me, I made a mistake, right? Or in Salah, let's say I read the wrong ayah. Mawan corrects me, right? And then Mawan corrects me, takes me to the side, of man, this is the correct ayah. It's okay, stuff happens, and we go on with the way. But if he comes and tells me next time, hey, don't let him read Salah, he makes mistakes all the time. Or, I see Fatiha, and I stop for a second, and he corrects me. You rubbing that mistake will cause tension between two individuals, right? But if someone actually accepts their fault, it's only fair that you forgive them, and perhaps try to rekindle that relation with them, for it might be a relation that's helpful to you, and a relation that you actually have wanted. So make sure that you distinguish between whether someone's using you or someone's sincere. If they're using you, try your best to fulfill their rights, but do not go above and beyond for that person. You don't have to be lovey-dovey with them. Other end of the spectrum, if someone is actually owning up to their mistake, forgive them, for Allah will forgive you. Have mercy on Allah's creation, Allah have mercy on you, and fulfill the rights as well. But if you want to, you can rekindle that relationship. You don't have to, but if you want to, that's going to be good for you as well. and it can be a benefit and a reward for you as well. Make sense? Capiche? Any other questions? Concerns? Comments? Everyone good? Yes. Exactly. I appreciate it. What's up?
I have a reflection. Like, you know, like a lot of the youth departments, like, members are here.
Yeah.
And you said something about how, like, if we put something, like one of the kids' eyes that, you know, they want to post a message,
Yeah.
that we put that in them,
Yeah.
then we get the reward. So, like, that was really nice. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
It's like, I always thought, like, I can't be in the message all the time.
Yeah.
You know, be in a woman, like, a 9 all the time.
Yeah.
Or, like, be in front of the youth. So it's nice that, you know, we can try at least with the right intentions to put it, or, like, you know, it's not bringing your sister. You know, like,
Another word you put
putting
around.
that in her heart. Putting that in her heart, and then, inshallah, they grow up to, like, love
I gotta buy a candy
her.
afterwards.
She falls asleep on it.
خلاص have it like a candy then. Yeah. But if I may follow up on that as well, this is why I mentioned earlier that it's important that you revolve your life around Islam, not Islam around your life. What happens? You prioritize things, right? When you just think about Islam when it's time to pray and when you're with Muslims, then Islam is not a lifestyle for you. It's just a habit and a routine. But when you live your life according to Islam and you prioritize Islam, everything that you do, you see it in the sense of Islam. Hey, I'm talking to someone, this might be my reward. You're praying, right? Someone that doesn't prioritize Islam, they come and pray for us, they leave it, that's it. You know, or they might not even pray. When someone cares about Islam, they say, you know what? I'm leaving all these things, I'm dropping everything for the sake of Allah to pray. Whatever it is that I drop, Allah will grant me even better afterwards. Your whole perspective on life completely changes. And you understand that blessings come with everything you do. At the same time, oftentimes, the du'as that we make for blessings that we ask for, they'll be present. How many times have you guys made du'a for something and it's actually happened? Right? Instantly, maybe it took some time. The reason why I mention that is if someone does not understand that it's from Allah, someone's always complaining, someone doesn't understand that Allah puts people through trials and tribulations, the blessing that they ask for, or a miracle or a blessing, whatever it is, may be in front of them, but simply due to the fact that they don't have that mindset and they have a very pessimistic mindset, they don't see that blessing. It's a very redundant thing, people say all the time, but in order for you to see the positive, you have to think positive. In order for you to see the blessings in Islam, you have to think about Islam as well. So all that you guys are doing, Allah will reward you guys immensely. Allah make it heavy on your scales, but this is going to be an act of good deeds for you. Whoever organized this, may Allah reward you guys. Anything that I'm teaching to someone, whoever applies it, you guys get a reward for it as well, because you guys made the initiative to help people learn. So everything goes into your scale, and there's not a small action. Every single small thing that you do, whether it's done intentionally or unintentionally, whether you thought about it, whether it happened on accident, every good thing that you do, be it even as simple as smiling, Allah will reward you for it. So think about someone that makes the bigger efforts to do something good, Allah will reward them immensely. So may Allah reward you guys immensely, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to be prosperous in our journey on the deen, and allow us to be steadfast, and allow us to be united in Jannah for those. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم جزاكم الله خير.
Jazakallah khair, Brother Abdurrehman, for the beautiful reminders. Guys, I just wanted to remind everyone that we're having a bake sale on the other side, so please come and support. We got some good snacks, brownies, cookies, whatever else you guys like. We got jiu-jitsu at 8:30 after Maghrib, and then tomorrow is the brothers' sports night. So if any of the younger brothers are interested in coming, we're gonna be doing a host of sports like basketball, handball, what else? Volleyball, badminton. We got a bunch of things. So come have fun with the brothers. I believe the sisters are doing something as well, but they're not gonna be at the center. So we're gonna have the center all to ourselves. Yeah, the sisters are having a picnic tomorrow. So it's a good thing I announced it.
Oh, and the big sale money helps the youth guys. Realize that supports.
Yeah, so don't complain about the pricing.
Remember what I taught you guys.
Jazakallah khair.
Yeah.